Get away from that Rolls-Royce right now before I have the police drag you off this street.
Darius Holloway slowly turned toward Lenora Vale, still standing in his own driveway.
Ma'am, that is my car, this is my house, and you need to leave my property.
Your car? Please. You look more like someone hired to clean it than someone who owns it. 911? Please send officers now. There's a man interfering with a car in this driveway, and I need help right away.
2 patrol officers hurried toward the driveway as Lenora pointed at Darius and demanded they put him in handcuffs. Darius stayed calm. Lenora had no idea her cruel 911 call was about to destroy everything she controlled. The late afternoon sun caught the pearl-white finish of the Rolls-Royce as Darius Holloway balanced the final cardboard box against his hip and reached for his keys. 3 days of driving back and forth from his apartment had finally emptied the storage unit. Tomorrow morning, he would walk into police headquarters as the new chief. Tonight, he just wanted to sit in his father's old kitchen and remember what home felt like. The house looked smaller than it had 30 years ago. The paint was faded. The front steps sagged slightly. But the mortgage was paid off, and the deed had his name on it now. After decades of chasing promotions in other cities, Darius was back where he started. He shifted the box to get a better grip and heard footsteps pounding across grass. "Excuse me!" Darius turned toward the voice. A white woman in her 50s marched across the adjoining lawn, her expensive jewelry catching the sunlight. Her blonde hair was pulled back tight. Her face was red with anger. "What are you doing with that car?" she demanded. Darius set the box on the hood of the Rolls-Royce. "I'm sorry. That car." She pointed at the vehicle like it had personally offended her. "Why are you touching it?" "Because it's mine." The woman laughed, actually laughed. "That's a Rolls-Royce." "I know what it is. Do you have any idea how much those cost?" Darius kept his voice level. "About as much as I paid for it." Her eyes narrowed. "I've lived in this neighborhood for 15 years. I know everyone who lives here. I've never seen you before in my life. I just moved in." "To whose house?" "Mine." Darius picked up the box again. "This is private property. You need to leave." The woman stepped closer instead. "I don't think so. I think you're stealing that car from whoever lives here. Ma'am, I'm asking you politely to get off my property." "Your property?" Her voice rose to a near shriek. "You just showed up today. Nobody sells a house without the neighborhood association knowing about it." Darius felt something familiar settle in his chest. 30 years of dealing with difficult people had taught him to recognize when reason would not work. This woman had already decided who he was and what he was doing. Nothing he said would change her mind. "The car belongs to me," he said quietly. "The house belongs to me. You need to leave. Now." "I don't believe you." The woman pulled out her phone and stepped back toward the street. Her fingers moved quickly across the screen. 911? "Yes, I need police immediately." She kept her eyes locked on Darius while she spoke. "I'm at 247 Maple Grove Drive. There's a man here tampering with a Rolls-Royce. I think he's trying to steal it." Darius felt his jaw tighten. She was calling 911 on him while he stood in his own driveway. "I personally witnessed him forcing his way into the vehicle," the woman continued. "I think the homeowner might be in danger." That was a lie. Darius had unlocked the car with his own key. She had seen him do it normally. The woman ended the call and smiled at him. "The police are on their way." Darius reached into his back pocket and pulled out a leather wallet. Inside was a gold badge and official identification card, both issued 3 days ago by the City Personnel Department. Chief of Police, Darius Holloway. He slipped the credentials from the wallet and held them behind his back, out of the woman's sight. She wanted to see what happened when police arrived to investigate a black man supposedly stealing his own car. Fine. He wanted to see the same thing. Two patrol cars rounded the corner with their emergency lights flashing. They pulled into the driveway behind the Rolls-Royce. The woman pointed triumphantly toward Darius. "Now, we'll see who that car really belongs to." Two officers stepped from their patrol car. The first was tall and broad-shouldered with graying hair at his temples. His nameplate read, Mercer. The second officer was younger, Hispanic, with careful eyes that took in every detail of the scene. His nameplate said, Ruiz. Lenora rushed toward them before Darius could speak. "Officers, thank God you're here." She pointed at Darius like he was a dangerous animal. "That man has stolen that Rolls-Royce. I saw him breaking into it with my own eyes." Mercer's expression shifted the moment he saw her. His posture straightened. His voice became more formal. "Mrs. Vale, what exactly did you witness?" Darius noticed the change immediately. These two knew each other. "I was in my garden when I heard noise from next door," Lenora said, her voice shaking with fake emotion. "I looked over and saw him forcing his way into that car. When I confronted him, he claimed it belonged to him. Can you imagine? A Rolls-Royce?" "Ma'am, that's not what happened," Darius said calmly. "Don't interrupt her," Mercer snapped without looking at him. He turned back to Lenora. "Mrs. Vale, are you certain about what you saw?" "Absolutely certain. And I don't think he just stole the car. I think he might have broken into the house, too. I've never seen him before today. He just appeared out of nowhere, with expensive property that obviously doesn't belong to him." Ruiz stepped closer to the Rolls-Royce and examined it carefully. "Is there any damage to the vehicle? Broken glass? Signs of forced entry?" Lenora waved her hand dismissively. "He probably has tools. Professional car thieves know how to get in without leaving obvious marks." "Sir, I need you to step away from the vehicle," Mercer ordered Darius. "Keep your hands where I can see them." Darius didn't move. "Officer, have you confirmed who owns this car?" "I'm asking the questions here," Mercer replied sharply. "Step away from the vehicle, now. Have you investigated anything beyond this woman's accusation?" "Sir, you need to comply with my instructions." Ruiz looked up from his examination of the car. The vehicle shows no signs of forced entry. The paint isn't scratched around the door handles. The windows are intact. "He could have used electronic devices," Lenora insisted. "These people know all kinds of tricks." "These people." Darius felt the familiar burn in his chest. 30 years in law enforcement, and he still heard those words. "Officer Mercer," Darius said evenly, "do you plan to verify ownership before detaining someone in their own driveway?" "Your own driveway?" Mercer's face reddened. "You think you can just claim whatever you want?" "I think you should do your job properly." "My job? My job is to investigate suspected vehicle theft reported by a respected member of this community." Mercer gestured toward Lenora. "Mrs. Vale has contributed thousands of dollars to police programs in this city." So that was it. Lenora wasn't just a neighbor. She was a donor. "That doesn't give her the right to make false accusations," Darius said. "False accusations!" Lenora's voice rose to a shriek. "I saw what I saw. Search him. He probably has burglary tools on him right now." Ruiz frowned. "Ma'am, we can't search someone without probable cause." "The probable cause is that I witnessed him stealing that car." "You witnessed him unlocking it with a key," Darius corrected. "That's not what she told us," Mercer said. He reached for his handcuffs. "Sir, I'm placing you in temporary detention while we sort this out." Lenora smiled triumphantly. "Finally, someone who knows how to handle criminals." "Officer Mercer," Darius said quietly, "are you arresting me for owning my own property?" "I'm detaining you for investigation of vehicle theft based on an eyewitness report. Without running the registration, without checking identification, without investigating anything at all." Mercer's jaw tightened. "Keep your hands visible and don't move." "This is exactly what should happen," Lenora said smugly. "When suspicious people appear in decent neighborhoods with expensive things that obviously don't belong to them." Ruiz stepped between them. "Maybe we should verify ownership before—" "I've got this handled, Ruiz." Mercer moved closer to Darius. "Sir, place your hands behind your back." Darius remained perfectly still. The badge in his hand felt warm against his palm. "Are you refusing to comply?" Mercer demanded. "I'm asking if you've done any actual police work here. The work I'm doing is protecting this neighborhood from people like you." People like him. There it was again. Lenora clapped her hands together with delight. "Yes, that's exactly right." As Mercer reached toward his handcuffs, Darius slowly brought the badge from behind his back and held it between them. Mercer's hand froze halfway to his handcuffs. His eyes locked onto the badge in Darius's palm. Ruiz leaned forward, squinting at the credential. His face went pale. "Chief of Police," he read aloud, "Darius Holloway." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Mercer's aggressive stance crumbled. His shoulders sagged. The color drained from his face as he stared at the badge, then at Darius, then back at the badge. "Sir, we didn't know." "Chief Holloway?" Ruiz's voice cracked slightly. "You're the new chief? We're supposed to meet you tomorrow morning at headquarters." Lenora's mouth fell open. She blinked rapidly, processing what she'd just heard. "That's impossible," she sputtered. "He can't be. That badge could be fake." Darius kept his voice level. "Officer Ruiz, I want you to run the registration on this vehicle." "Yes, sir," Ruiz said quickly, reaching for his radio. "Wait," Mercer interrupted. "Chief, there's no need to—" "There's every need," Darius cut him off. "This is a reported vehicle theft. We investigate reported vehicle theft properly." Lenora stepped closer, her voice shaking with indignation. "Stolen badges exist. Anyone can buy a fake police credential online. That doesn't change what I witnessed." Ruiz spoke into his radio. "Dispatch, I need a registration check on a Rolls-Royce Phantom." He rattled off the license plate number. Mercer shifted nervously from foot to foot. "Chief Holloway, Mrs. Vale is a respected donor to our police foundation. She's contributed thousands. I don't care if she's contributed millions," Darius replied firmly. "We follow procedure." The radio crackled. "Registration shows the vehicle belongs to Darius Holloway. Address matches your current location. No reports of theft or liens." Silence stretched across the driveway. Lenora's face flushed red. "Well, I saw something suspicious. Anyone can see that." "Something suspicious?" Darius repeated. "That's different from what you told these officers." "I told them exactly what happened." "Officer Ruiz," Darius said calmly, "would you contact dispatch and ask them to read back the exact language from the original 911 call?" Ruiz hesitated, glancing at Mercer. Mercer gave a barely perceptible shake of his head. "Officer Ruiz," Darius said again, "request the exact language from the 911 call." "Yes, sir." Ruiz keyed his radio. "Dispatch, can you provide the exact wording from the caller's statement on this incident?" The radio crackled again. After a moment, the dispatcher's voice came through clearly. Caller reported witnessing a black male forcing entry into a white Rolls-Royce in the driveway. Caller stated she observed the suspect using unknown tools to break into the vehicle and believed the homeowner might be in danger. The words hit like a physical blow. Forcing entry, unknown tools, suspected break-in. None of it was true. Lenora's eyes darted between the officers, searching for support that was no longer there. That's what it looked like from my angle." "From your angle," Darius repeated, "while I was standing in my own driveway, unlocking my own car with my own keys. How was I supposed to know it was your car? You weren't supposed to know. You were supposed to tell the truth about what you actually saw." Darius looked up toward the security camera mounted above his garage door. The red recording light blinked steadily. "Mrs. Vale," he said quietly, "do you see that camera?" Lenora followed his gaze. Her confident expression began to crack. "It recorded our entire conversation," Darius continued, "including the moment you watched me unlock the Rolls-Royce with my key, the same key I'm holding right now." For the first time since this began, Lenora's confidence completely disappeared. Lenora stared at the security camera for a long moment, her face twisted with rage instead of shame. "You think you're so smart," she snarled, pointing a manicured finger at Darius, "recording everything like some paranoid criminal." "I record everything because I value the truth," Darius replied calmly. "The truth?" Lenora's voice rose to a shriek. "The truth is that you're abusing your authority before you've even officially started, using your badge to intimidate a woman who was trying to protect her neighborhood." Mercer shifted uncomfortably. "Mrs. Vale, maybe we should all— Don't you dare tell me to calm down." Lenora whirled on him. "I've been supporting this police department for years. My donations bought half the equipment in your patrol cars." She turned back to Darius, her eyes blazing. "You think having that badge makes you untouchable? You think you can threaten residents and get away with it?" "I haven't threatened anyone," Darius said evenly. "I've simply established the facts." "Facts?" Lenora laughed bitterly. "The fact is that you don't belong in this neighborhood. The fact is that decent people have every right to be suspicious when strangers show up with expensive cars they clearly can't afford. I can afford it because I earned it." "Earned it how? Selling drugs? Running some scam?" The accusation hung in the air like poison. Ruiz took a step forward. "Ma'am, Chief Holloway has 30 years of law enforcement experience. I don't care what his fake resume says," Lenora snapped. "Corrupt cops exist. Dirty money exists. And I know what I saw." Darius felt the familiar burn of injustice in his chest, but his voice remained steady. "Officers, I want you both to document this incident exactly as it occurred. Include the 911 recording, your observations, and Mrs. Vale's statements to you upon arrival." "Of course, Chief," Ruiz said immediately. Mercer hesitated. "Sir, given that Mrs. Vale is a major supporter of the department, maybe we could—" "Officer Mercer," Darius interrupted, "are you suggesting you would alter an official report because of someone's donation history?" "No, sir," Mercer said quickly. "But sometimes incidents can be interpreted different ways. Not this incident. You will document exactly what happened. Nothing more, nothing less. Do you understand?" Mercer's jaw tightened. "Yes, sir." "Good." Darius looked at both officers. "Neither of you should feel pressured to change your report because I'm your incoming chief. Write the truth. That's all I expect from any officer under my command." Ruiz nodded firmly. "Understood, sir." Lenora had heard enough. "You'll regret this," she hissed at Darius. "I know people in this city. Important people. People who actually matter." She stormed toward the property line, then stopped and called back. "Gordon Hale and I are very close friends. So is Mayor Davidson. They'll hear about what you did here today." "They should," Darius replied. "Everyone should know what happened here today." Lenora's face contorted with fury, but she said nothing more. She marched across the lawn toward her own house. The officers finished their paperwork and left. Darius watched through his front window as Lenora paced on her front walk, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing wildly. He couldn't hear the words, but her body language told the story. She was already spinning her version of events. Darius went to his computer and immediately backed up the security footage to multiple locations. Then he opened a notebook and began writing down every detail of the encounter, starting from the moment Lenora had approached him. 20 minutes later, as he was double-checking timestamps, Ruiz's patrol car pulled back into the driveway. The officer got out and walked to the front door. Darius opened it before he could knock. "Chief, I wanted to speak with you privately," Ruiz said, glancing toward Lenora's house. About Mrs. Vale. What about her? Ruiz lowered his voice. Sir, her calls, they're usually marked as priority in our system. Has been for years. Dispatch knows to send units quickly when she calls. Priority based on what criteria? She's listed as a community stakeholder in our database. Major donor, neighborhood association president, police foundation board member. When people like that call, we respond faster. Darius felt his jaw clench. How many other citizens receive this priority treatment? Maybe a dozen names total, all major donors or politically connected residents. And everyone else? Standard response times. Darius stared at Ruiz for a long moment. The scope of the problem was becoming clear. This wasn't just about one false accusation in a driveway. Someone inside his department had been running a two-tier justice system. Rich donors got rapid response and preferential treatment. Everyone else got whatever was left. Officer Ruiz, Darius said quietly, how long has this priority system been in place? Years, sir, maybe 5 or 6. It's not official policy, just the way things work. The way things worked. Darius looked across the street at Lenora, still pacing and talking on her phone, probably telling Gordon Hale how the new police chief had threatened her. She wasn't just angry about being caught in a lie. She was angry about losing her special status. The morning sun hadn't fully risen when Darius pulled into the police headquarters parking lot. His first official day as chief was supposed to start with introductions and briefings. Instead, his phone had been buzzing since 6 a.m. The building felt different than it had during his interview visits. Heavier. Officers glanced at him as he walked through the lobby, their expressions unreadable. Word traveled fast in law enforcement circles. By now, everyone knew about the driveway confrontation. Darius had barely reached his office when the desk phone rang. Chief Holloway, this is Gordon Hale. I need to see you immediately. Councilman Hale? I was planning to... Now, Chief, my office. This can't wait. The line went dead. 20 minutes later, Darius sat across from Gordon Hale in the councilman's spacious office overlooking downtown. Gordon was 61, silver-haired, and dressed in a suit that probably cost more than most officers made in a month. Coffee? Gordon asked, his tone carefully neutral. No, thank you. Gordon poured himself a cup and settled behind his desk. Chief, we need to discuss what happened yesterday evening. What about it? Lenora Vale called me at home last night. She's deeply shaken by your confrontation with her. Darius kept his expression blank. Her confrontation with me, you mean? She says you threatened her after she made a routine safety call to police. She made a false report claiming I was stealing my own car. Gordon waved his hand dismissively. Details, Chief. The important thing is how we handle this moving forward. The details are the only thing that matters. Gordon leaned forward. Lenora has been a pillar of this community for decades. She's donated hundreds of thousands to police programs. The new K-9 unit exists because of her generosity. And that gives her the right to file false reports? It gives her the benefit of the doubt when misunderstandings occur. Gordon's voice carried a slight edge. She's frightened, Chief. She believes you used your badge to intimidate her. Darius felt heat building behind his sternum. I showed my badge to prevent an unlawful detention. From her perspective, you threatened retaliation for her call. Her perspective is wrong. Gordon set down his coffee cup. Chief, I'm going to be direct with you. Lenora wants a public apology. Something simple acknowledging that tensions got heated and mistakes were made on both sides. No. Excuse me. I will not apologize for owning my home or my car. I will not apologize for existing in that neighborhood. Gordon's carefully neutral expression cracked. Chief, you're new here. You don't understand the delicate relationships that keep this city running smoothly. I understand that you want me to lie publicly to protect a major donor. I want you to show wisdom. One apology makes this entire incident disappear. Darius stood. The incident won't disappear, Councilman. It's being preserved as evidence. Evidence of what? I've ordered preservation of the original 911 recording, both officers' body camera footage, dispatch records, and any internal documentation identifying Mrs. Vale as receiving preferential treatment. Gordon's face went pale. Chief, that seems excessive for a simple misunderstanding. A false police report isn't simple. You're making a serious mistake. Gordon's voice hardened. Lenora has powerful friends throughout this city. Challenging her could threaten your appointment before you've even started. Darius moved toward the door. Then you'll have to find another chief willing to run a two-tier justice system. What do you mean by that? Darius paused with his hand on the doorknob. I mean, Mrs. Vale's days of special treatment are over. Back at headquarters, Darius called Lieutenant Sarah Torres, the day shift supervisor, into his office. Lieutenant, I need to see our dispatch protocols immediately. Which protocols specifically, Chief? Priority contact designations. I want every name on the list and the criteria for inclusion. Torres looked uncomfortable. Sir, that's not really an official policy. Show me anyway. 20 minutes later, Darius stared at a computer screen displaying an internal database. 12 names appeared under Priority Community Contacts. Lenora Vale was third on the list. Lieutenant, explain how this works. When these residents call, dispatch flags it as expedited. Units respond faster. Supervisors get notified immediately. Based on what? Donation history, political connections, neighborhood association leadership. Darius scrolled through the list. All the names belong to wealthy residents or business owners. No teachers, no mechanics, no grocery store clerks. How long has this existed? Years, sir. It's just how we've always done things. Not anymore. Darius highlighted Lenora's name and hit delete. Remove every name from this list. Sir? Every citizen gets the same response standards. Period. Torres hesitated. Chief, some of these people specifically donate to ensure faster response times. Then their donations just became charity instead of bribes. Within an hour, Lenora's special status had been stripped from every system. Her calls would now be evaluated like anyone else's. That afternoon, Lenora sat in Gordon's office, her face flushed with anger. He eliminated my priority status, she snapped, completely removed it. Gordon rubbed his temples. Lenora, maybe if you apologized for the misunderstanding. I'm not apologizing to him. Her voice turned cold and calculating. Gordon, you owe me. 3 campaign cycles I've backed you. The police foundation, the youth programs, the community center renovation. I know, but then I'll remove him before he removes anything else. Gordon looked up sharply. What does that mean? Lenora smiled, but there was no warmth in it. It means Chief Holloway is about to discover what happens when someone challenges the wrong person in this city. The afternoon sun cast harsh shadows across the steps of City Hall as Lenora Vale positioned herself directly in front of the main entrance. 3 local news crews had assembled after her urgent calls about police misconduct. She wore a cream-colored blazer and pearls, her silver hair perfectly styled, projecting the image of a concerned citizen rather than someone launching a calculated attack. Ladies and gentlemen, Lenora began, her voice carrying the practiced authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Yesterday, I made a simple neighborhood safety call about suspicious activity. Today, I've been punished for it. Reporter Patricia Kim stepped forward with her microphone. What kind of punishment, Mrs. Vale? Chief Holloway stripped away legitimate protections that have kept our neighborhood safe for years. He eliminated priority response systems simply because I questioned him. Lenora's voice rose with manufactured outrage. This is clear retaliation against a law-abiding citizen. What exactly happened during your encounter with Chief Holloway? Lenora's eyes gleamed. He used his badge to intimidate me. Stood too close, made it clear there would be consequences for my call. Then, when I tried to address this through proper channels, he began systematically dismantling programs I've helped build. Behind the cameras, several city employees watched through windows. Word spread quickly through the building that Lenora Vale was outside demanding the new police chief's head. Gordon Hale received the call 20 minutes later. "Councilman, we have a situation," his aide whispered urgently. "Mrs. Vale is holding a press conference on our front steps." Gordon rushed to the window and saw the crowd below. His stomach clenched. This was spinning out of control faster than he'd anticipated. Within an hour, Gordon had called an emergency meeting with the City Oversight Committee. "Members, we need to discuss the serious allegations being made against Chief Holloway." Gordon's voice carried forced gravity. "Mrs. Vale has presented disturbing claims about badge abuse and official retaliation." Committee member Janet Ross frowned. "What evidence supports these allegations?" Mrs. Vale is a respected community leader with decades of service. Her word carries significant weight. "That's not evidence, Gordon." Gordon's jaw tightened. "She's requesting a formal inquiry into whether Chief Holloway used his position to intimidate a citizen who made a legitimate emergency call." At police headquarters, Darius watched the news coverage on his office monitor. Lenora stood before the cameras, painting herself as a victim of police abuse while demanding his removal. His phone buzzed. Text message from Gordon. "Emergency oversight meeting called. They want answers." Darius typed back, "Then they'll get them." Instead of responding emotionally, Darius called his records division. "I need a comprehensive review of all police calls involving Lenora Vale over the past 3 years," he ordered calmly. "Not for prosecution purposes, but to determine whether her priority status influenced response decisions." "Chief, that could take several hours." "Then start now." 2 hours later, Detective Maria Santos knocked on his door. "Chief, the preliminary review is ready." Darius studied the stack of incident reports. 23 calls from Lenora in 36 months. Suspicious person reports, noise complaints, traffic violations, pattern after pattern emerged. "Detective, look at call number 7. Mrs. Vale reported a suspicious black male checking mailboxes. What did officers find?" Santos read the report. USPS mail carrier on his regular route. Badge, uniform, everything proper. Call number 15. Hispanic landscaper working at the house across the street. Homeowner confirmed he was hired. Call number 19. Food delivery driver parked outside the Hendersons' house. Had the receipt and everything. Darius leaned back in his chair. In how many of these calls did Mrs. Vale's race identification prove accurate? Santos flipped through the reports. 0, Chief. Every single person she reported as suspicious was lawfully present. And response times? Average 6 minutes. Standard response time for non-priority calls is 12 to 15 minutes. The pattern was uglier than Darius had expected. Lenora hadn't just received preferential treatment. She'd weaponized it to harass people who didn't look like her neighbors. Meanwhile, investigators were interviewing the officers from the driveway encounter. Officer Mercer sat stiffly across from Internal Affairs Lieutenant Davis. "Officer Mercer, explain your initial response when Mrs. Vale made her accusation." Mercer shifted uncomfortably. "She seemed credible. Said she witnessed theft. Did you verify the vehicle registration before considering detention?" Mrs. Vale was very insistent about what she'd seen." "That's not what I asked." Mercer's hands fidgeted. "No, sir. I accepted her account first." "Why?" The question hung in the air. Mercer's face reddened. "She's well known to the department, has a good relationship with administration." "So her reputation influenced your professional judgment?" Maybe. "Yes." Officer Ruiz's interview was dramatically different. "Officer Ruiz, why did you insist on checking vehicle registration?" Ruiz looked directly at Lieutenant Davis. Because accusations require verification, regardless of who makes them. Did Mrs. Vale's status in the community affect your response? No, sir. I treated it like any other suspicious person call. What was your impression of Officer Mercer's handling? Ruiz paused, choosing his words carefully. Mercer deferred to Mrs. Vale because of her reputation with the department. He was more concerned about her comfort than proper procedure. Can you be more specific? She demanded we detain Chief Holloway immediately. Mercer started moving toward compliance before we'd established any evidence. I had to intervene. The consequences began landing within hours. At 4:30 p.m., Lenora opened her email to find a message from the Police Foundation Board. Dear Mrs. Vale, effective immediately. Your committee access is suspended pending city review of donor influence policies. This temporary measure ensures objectivity during the current inquiry. Board Chairman Robert Mills Lenora stared at the screen, her face burning. She'd been removed from the foundation she'd helped build. The foundation that had given her access to department leadership, budget discussions, policy recommendations. Darius had cost her something real. She grabbed her phone and dialed Gordon's direct line. This has gone too far, she hissed when he answered. He's dismantling everything. Lenora, maybe we should… No! Her voice turned ice cold. I tried to handle this diplomatically. Remove him quietly. But Holloway wants war. What are you talking about? Lenora smiled, but her eyes held pure malice. I'm talking about destroying his credibility so completely that no police department in this country will ever hire him again. The following morning, Darius arrived at headquarters before dawn. The building felt different now that he understood how influence had twisted its operations. Coffee in hand, he walked to the conference room where Detective Santos had spread 36 incident reports across the table, like evidence at a crime scene. What did you find overnight? Darius asked, settling into his chair. Santos pointed to the first stack. 23 calls from Lenora Vale over 36 months. But, Chief, when we cross-referenced with responding officers' reports, the pattern gets worse. She handed him a thick folder. Call from March 15th last year. Mrs. Vale reported a black male casing vehicles on Maple Street. Said he was checking door handles, possibly attempting theft. Darius read Officer Peterson's response report. Subject was delivery driver for Metro Foods, attempting to locate correct house number. No suspicious activity observed. All vehicles secure. She claimed theft in progress. The driver was reading address numbers. Santos pulled another report. June 20th. Hispanic male trespassing behind the Morrison house. Mrs. Vale insisted he was breaking into their shed. Pool maintenance contractor. Darius read aloud. Scheduled appointment confirmed by homeowner. No trespassing occurred. She called 911 3 times during that incident, Chief. Kept insisting officers weren't taking it seriously enough. The pattern repeated endlessly. Black contractors became burglars. Hispanic landscapers became trespassers. Delivery drivers became car thieves. Every single report described criminal activity that officers later determined had never happened. But the most disturbing discovery wasn't Lenora's false accusations. It was how the department had responded to them. Detective, look at response times. Average 6 minutes to Mrs. Vale's calls. Santos nodded grimly. Standard non-emergency response is 12 to 15 minutes. She got priority treatment. Why? Because dispatch recognized her phone number. Look at this notation from September. Darius studied the dispatch log. A handwritten note read, VIP caller, expedite response. VIP caller? Darius's voice turned dangerous. On what authority? Santos pulled out another stack of documents. That's where it gets complicated, Chief. I found the original memorandum. The memo was 3 years old, signed by former Deputy Chief Reynolds. All personnel are reminded that Mrs. Lenora Vale's community contributions require appropriate response consideration. Calls from her residents should receive elevated priority. Reynolds authorized preferential treatment based on donations? Gets worse. Look at Officer Martinez's report from last August. Darius read the incident summary. Lenora had reported a suspicious black male walking slowly through the neighborhood, claiming he was casing houses for burglary. Officer Martinez detained the man for 20 minutes, demanded identification, and searched him. The man was a postal worker on his lunch break. Martinez wrote that the detention was based solely on Mrs. Vale's insistence that the subject did not belong on that street, Santos explained. No suspicious behavior observed, no evidence of criminal activity. But he held the man because Mrs. Vale demanded it. Darius felt anger building in his chest. Martinez violated that citizen's constitutional rights because a wealthy donor pointed at a black man. It happened more than once, Chief. Look at this pattern. Santos had created a timeline. Every few months, Lenora would report someone who didn't belong in her neighborhood. Officers would respond quickly, detain people without cause, run background checks, and file reports describing routine activities as suspicious behavior. How many officers participated in this? 7 different officers over 3 years. Not all of them. Ruiz never detained anyone based solely on her word, but most of them treated her accusations as automatically credible. The door opened and Lieutenant Davis from Internal Affairs entered with Officer Ruiz. Chief, Officer Ruiz wanted to provide additional context about Mrs. Vale's influence. Ruiz sat down, his expression serious. Chief, I need to tell you something that wasn't in my official report, about how officers were coached regarding Lenora Vale. Coached how? Sergeant Williams pulled me aside during my 3rd week on patrol, said Mrs. Vale was a major police foundation donor and that keeping her satisfied was important for department funding. Darius leaned forward. He told you explicitly to treat her calls differently? Not in those words, but he made it clear that responding officers should go above and beyond to address her concerns, said she had direct access to command staff and could make life difficult for officers who didn't take her seriously. Santos shuffled through more documents. Chief, I found similar coaching records for 5 other officers. All new patrol officers were given informal guidance about handling Mrs. Vale's calls. Who authorized this coaching? Lieutenant Davis cleared his throat. That's what we discovered this morning, Chief. The coaching wasn't random. It was systematically implemented. He handed Darius a personnel memo from 2 years earlier. Deputy Chief Reynolds created an unofficial protocol after receiving pressure from City Councilman Gordon Hale. Darius read the memo twice. Gordon had personally contacted Reynolds to express concern about Mrs. Vale's frustration with police response times and follow-up. Reynolds had responded by creating the VIP designation and implementing the coaching program. Gordon Hale ordered the police department to give his donor preferential treatment? The paper trail shows at least 3 meetings between Councilman Hale and Deputy Chief Reynolds, specifically about Mrs. Vale's complaints, Davis confirmed. Reynolds implemented the priority system after their 2nd meeting. Darius stood up, his jaw tight. The driveway confrontation hadn't been an isolated incident. It had been the inevitable result of a systematic corruption of police services that had been operating for years. Detective Santos, how many citizens were illegally detained because of Mrs. Vale's privileged status? At least 12 documented cases over 36 months, all minorities, all later determined to be lawfully present. Darius walked to the window, staring out at the city he'd sworn to serve equally. The department hadn't just failed those citizens, it had actively violated their rights to protect a wealthy donor's feelings. Lieutenant Davis, effective immediately, I want every informal priority designation removed from our system. Every VIP notation, every special consideration flag, all of it. Yes, Chief. Detective Santos, expand this review department wide. I want to know if other donors received similar treatment. Already started, Chief. Found at least 4 other names with priority flags. Darius turned back to face them. And Lieutenant Davis? Yes, Chief? I want a formal investigation into Deputy Chief Reynolds's authorization of this system. And I want every officer who illegally detained citizens based on donor pressure interviewed about their training. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Darius wasn't just dismantling Lenora's influence. He was exposing a corruption network that reached from city council into the highest levels of police command. The phone buzzed against Darius's desk at 3:30. Gordon Hale's name appeared on the screen. Chief Holloway, we need to talk. My office, now. 30 minutes later, Darius sat across from Gordon in the polished City Hall office. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the downtown district. Campaign photos lined the walls. Gordon shaking hands with police chiefs, cutting ribbons at community events, accepting donation checks from civic organizations. I understand you've been digging into Mrs. Vale's relationship with the department, Gordon said, adjusting his silver cufflinks. Darius placed Santos's investigation folder on the mahogany desk. Your name appears repeatedly in these documents, Councilman. You personally pressured Deputy Chief Reynolds to create special protocols for Lenora Vale. Gordon didn't flinch. He opened the folder and scanned the memos with practiced indifference. I advocated for a constituent who contributes significantly to police programs. That's my job. Your job is representing citizens equally, not selling police services to the highest bidder. Gordon leaned back in his leather chair, his expression hardening. Chief, you've been here, what? 4 days? I've been building relationships in this city for 20 years. Mrs. Vale has donated over $300,000 to police equipment and training programs. That buys her some consideration. It buys her nothing except a tax deduction. Does it? Gordon's voice took on a sharp edge. When her foundation purchases body cameras, bulletproof vests, and patrol car computers, should we pretend that generosity doesn't matter? Darius felt his jaw tighten. Access to police services isn't for sale. Everything is for sale, Chief. The question is whether you understand the price of your principles. Gordon stood and walked to his window, hands clasped behind his back. Mrs. Vale doesn't just donate equipment. She helped finance the campaigns that put 3 members of the Police Oversight Committee in office. She contributed to the mayor's election fund. She supports the city council members who approved your hiring. The words hit like ice water. Darius had assumed the hearing would be conducted by neutral officials. Instead, he was walking into a room filled with Lenora's political investments. Are you telling me the oversight process is compromised? Gordon turned back toward him, smiling coldly. I'm telling you that politics is complicated. Mrs. Vale has been very good to this city. People remember loyalty. And they punish disloyalty? They protect their interests, just like you should protect yours. Darius stood, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. What exactly are you suggesting? Gordon returned to his desk and sat down, steepling his fingers. Simple. You apologize publicly for the misunderstanding in Mrs. Vale's driveway. You acknowledge that she was acting out of neighborhood safety concerns. You reinstate her priority status with the department, and you discontinue any investigation into her previous calls. In exchange for what? You keep your job. The hearing disappears. Mrs. Vale's foundation continues supporting police programs. Everyone wins. Darius picked up the investigation folder and tucked it under his arm. Except the citizens whose rights were violated, except the officers who were trained to break the law, except the community that trusted us to serve them equally. Chief, be practical. You've been here less than a week, and you're already facing removal proceedings. Is your pride worth destroying your career? My career means nothing if it's built on corruption. Gordon's friendly mask finally slipped. Then you're a fool. And fools don't survive long in politics. Darius walked toward the door, then stopped. Councilman, when the hearing happens, I'll be presenting evidence of the entire arrangement, including your role in creating it. You do that, Chief, and we'll see who the committee believes. 20 minutes later, as Darius walked through police headquarters, his phone exploded with notifications. Text messages from reporters, missed calls from city officials, voicemails from concerned officers. Detective Santos rushed up to him. "Chief, you need to see this." She handed him her phone. A video was playing on social media. 30 seconds of shaky footage showing Darius in his driveway, badge in hand, leaning toward Lenora Vale. His voice came through clearly. "You need to understand what you just did." The clip ended abruptly. No context, no explanation. Just the new police chief appearing to threaten a frightened civilian with his badge. "It's been shared 800 times in the last 10 minutes, Santos said. "The comments are brutal." Darius watched the video again. Lenora had edited out everything before and after. Her false accusations, the officer's arrival, the evidence that proved her wrong. She'd kept only the fragment that made him look dangerous. His phone rang. The caller ID showed the mayor's office. The war had officially begun. The police headquarters felt like a tomb that evening. Darius sat alone in his office, the door closed, watching the edited video for the 20th time. Outside his window, news vans lined the street like vultures waiting for carrion. The clip played on repeat across every local channel. 30 seconds of carefully crafted deception. His voice, his badge, his face, all twisted into something unrecognizable. "You need to understand what you just did." The words that had been a simple warning about false police reports now sounded like a threat from a corrupt official. Lenora had surgically removed every piece of context that might explain his actions. Detective Santos knocked and entered without waiting. "Chief, Channel 7 is running it every 15 minutes. They're calling it abuse of badge caught on camera." Darius paused the video at the moment his badge appeared in frame. "What are they saying about the investigation?" "That's just it. They don't know there is one. Nobody's mentioned the body cameras or your security footage. It's like the only evidence that exists is this clip." A sharp knock interrupted them. Gordon Hale stepped through the door, his face flushed with barely controlled anger. "Chief, we have a problem. The mayor's getting calls demanding your immediate suspension. 3 council members want an emergency vote of no confidence. The Police Foundation Board is meeting tonight to discuss withdrawing funding." Darius leaned back in his chair. "All because of 30 seconds of edited video? All because you refused to handle this quietly when you had the chance?" Gordon moved closer to the desk. "Public perception has already turned. It doesn't matter what really happened in that driveway. What matters is what people see on their screens. The truth matters. The truth is, whatever gets the most shares on social media." Gordon pulled out his own phone. "Look at the comments. Corrupt cop threatens innocent woman. Another bad chief abusing his power. She was just trying to protect her neighborhood." Santos crossed her arms. "We have evidence that contradicts every word of that narrative." "Evidence nobody has seen," Gordon snapped. "Evidence locked away behind departmental procedure while Mrs. Vale controls the story." He turned back to Darius. "Release the body camera footage. Now. Show people what really happened." Darius shook his head. "That evidence is protected until the formal review process. Forget procedure. Your career is being destroyed in real time. If I leak protected evidence to save myself, I'm exactly the corrupt chief they're saying I am." Gordon's voice rose to a shout. You're going to let pride destroy everything you've worked for? The office door opened again. Officers Mercer and Ruiz entered, both looking exhausted. Mercer's uniform was wrinkled, his face pale with stress. "Chief," Ruiz said quietly, "Internal Affairs just interviewed us. They want our statements about the driveway incident." Darius studied Mercer's expression. "What did you tell them?" Mercer shifted uncomfortably. "I told them. I tried to be accurate about what I could remember clearly." "What does that mean?" "It means," Ruiz interrupted, his voice sharp with disgust, "that Mercer suddenly can't recall Mrs. Vale's exact words to 911. He claims the details are fuzzy after all the stress." Mercer's face reddened. "I'm not going to put words in someone's mouth that I'm not completely certain about." "You're not certain she demanded we arrest him before we checked ownership?" Ruiz stepped closer. "You're not certain she claimed to witness him breaking into the car? Everything's recorded, Evan. Your body camera captured every word she said. Memories can be unreliable. Cowardice is reliable." Ruiz turned to Darius. "Chief, he's scared the investigation will show he violated procedure by accepting her accusation without evidence. He's trying to minimize what happened to protect himself." Gordon watched the exchange with calculating eyes. "This is exactly the problem. Even your own officers are questioning the official narrative. How do you think that looks to the Oversight Committee?" Darius stood and walked to the window. Below, protesters had gathered with signs reading, "Accountability now," and "No corrupt chiefs." Lenora Vale stood among them, wearing a simple dress and speaking earnestly to reporters. She had transformed herself from aggressor to victim in less than 6 hours. "Chief," Santos said softly, "the evidence preservation order has been filed. Everything is officially protected for the formal review." Gordon laughed bitterly. "Protected while your reputation burns. Brilliant strategy." Darius's phone buzzed with an emergency alert. The Oversight Committee had scheduled an emergency hearing for the following morning. His authority as chief was suspended immediately pending their review. The City Hall conference room felt smaller than it looked from outside. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the long table where 5 Oversight Committee members sat with stacks of documents and water bottles. Darius entered wearing his dress uniform, his badge gleaming under the artificial light. He carried himself with the same calm dignity he'd shown in his driveway 3 days earlier. Ruiz walked beside him, looking uncomfortable in his formal uniform, but determined. Behind them came Internal Affairs investigator Maria Santos, carrying 3 sealed evidence boxes, and Deputy Chief Williams, who had been temporarily managing daily operations. Committee Chairman Robert Hayes, a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses, called the session to order. "We're here to review allegations against Chief Holloway regarding his conduct during a neighborhood incident. Mrs. Vale has accused the chief of using his badge to threaten her after she made what she claims was a routine safety call to 911. Lenora sat at the opposite end of the room with her attorney, David Brennan. She wore a navy blue dress and pearl earrings, her hands folded primly in her lap. Gordon Hale sat 2 seats away from her, his usual confident demeanor replaced by visible tension. "Let's begin with the dispatch recording," Hayes announced. The room speakers crackled to life. Lenora's voice filled the space, sharp and urgent. "I need police at 247 Maple Grove Drive immediately. There's a black man forcing his way into an expensive car in the driveway. I think he's stealing it. The homeowner might be in danger." Committee member Janet Rodriguez leaned forward. "Mrs. Vale, you specifically stated you witnessed forced entry?" Lenora's attorney started to speak, but she cut him off. "I saw what I saw. The situation looked suspicious. But the registration records show Chief Holloway legally owned that vehicle," Rodriguez continued. "DMV documents confirm he purchased it 6 months ago." Santos opened the first evidence box. "The Rolls-Royce belongs to Chief Holloway. Clean title, properly insured, no liens. He had every right to access it. Hayes examined the paperwork. Mrs. Vale, if you weren't certain about ownership, why did you tell 911 you witnessed forced entry rather than simply reporting suspicious activity? Brennan finally interrupted. My client made an honest assessment based on what she observed. An assessment contradicted by video evidence, Santos replied. She activated a laptop connected to the room's display screen. This is Chief Holloway's home security footage from that afternoon. The video showed Darius approaching the Rolls-Royce with car keys visible in his hand. He unlocked the vehicle normally, opened the trunk, and began removing boxes. No forcing, no braking, no suspicious behavior. Committee member Thomas Wright shook his head. Mrs. Vale, this footage directly contradicts your emergency call. Lenora's face flushed. The angle doesn't show everything. From my position, from your position across the lawn, Ruiz interrupted. You had a clear view of his actions. Your own statement to officers mentioned seeing him with keys. Hayes turned to Ruiz. Officer, describe Mrs. Vale's behavior when you arrived. Ruiz straightened in his chair. She immediately demanded we arrest Chief Holloway, before we verified ownership, before we established probable cause. She kept insisting he didn't belong in that neighborhood and couldn't possibly own expensive property. Did she provide any evidence of theft? None. She became angry when we asked for proof. She told Officer Mercer to search the chief immediately. Gordon shifted uncomfortably. Several committee members glanced at him with obvious disapproval. Rodriguez consulted her notes. The department has an informal system for prioritizing certain donors' calls. Williams nodded grimly. Mrs. Vale's name was flagged for expedited response. Several officers were instructed to treat her complaints as high priority regardless of merit. That system has been abolished, Darius said calmly. All citizens receive equal police service now. Wright smiled approvingly. Chief, it appears you handled an inappropriate situation professionally and then took steps to prevent future abuse. Hayes looked around the table. Unless there are objections, I'm prepared to recommend full exoneration and commendation for Chief Holloway's conduct. Lenora's attorney stood abruptly. Chairman Hayes, we have additional evidence that changes everything. Brennan activated his own laptop. Mrs. Vale recorded this interaction on her cell phone. It shows Chief Holloway using his badge to threaten retaliation. The video began playing. 30 seconds of Darius holding his badge, standing close to Lenora, saying, "You need to understand what you just did." The room fell silent. Two committee members who had seemed ready to support Darius suddenly looked uncertain. Hayes cleared his throat. This requires further investigation. We'll reconvene next week for a full independent hearing. The suspension order arrived at Darius's desk like a death sentence wrapped in official letterhead. City Manager Patricia Hayes had signed it personally, effective immediately upon receipt. Darius read the formal language twice, his jaw tightening with each bureaucratic phrase about administrative leave pending investigation and temporary reassignment of operational duties. 32 years in law enforcement. 6 days as chief. Deputy Chief Williams knocked and entered without waiting for permission. "Sir, I'm sorry." The order came down from Hayes directly. Darius set the paper aside. "Who's taking over?" "Captain Morrison on an interim basis. He's already been briefed." Williams sat heavily in the chair across from Darius's desk. "This is garbage, Chief. Everyone knows it." "Evidence doesn't care what everyone knows," Darius replied. "It only matters what can be proven." His desk phone rang. Williams answered and spoke quietly before hanging up. "That was Officer Mercer. He wants to speak with you before you leave." Mercer appeared in the doorway 5 minutes later, his uniform wrinkled and his face pale. He entered slowly, closing the door behind him. "Chief, I need to tell you something." Darius gestured to a chair. "Sit. The investigators called me this morning. They're reviewing my original report from your driveway. They want to know why I was ready to detain you before checking vehicle registration." Mercer's hands shook slightly. I wrote it up clean, sir. Made it sound routine. But Ruiz's body camera shows everything. What exactly are you asking me? If I testify honestly about Mrs. Vale's demands and my response, it could end my career. 20 years on the force, Chief. My pension. My family's health insurance. Mercer leaned forward desperately. But if I stick with my original statement, maybe this whole thing goes away quietly. Darius studied the man across from him. Fear had carved deep lines around Mercer's eyes. Officer, what did you swear to uphold when you took this badge? Sir? The oath. What did you promise? Mercer swallowed hard. To serve and protect. To uphold the law fairly. Does lying in an official investigation serve anyone? No, sir. Does protecting a false accusation uphold fair law enforcement? No, sir. Mercer's voice cracked. But, Chief, I've got kids. College tuition coming up. If they find out I escalated toward detention because of donor pressure, then you should have thought about your family before you let donor pressure influence your judgment. Darius's tone remained steady, but his words hit like hammer blows. Officer Mercer, I won't tell you what to say, but I will tell you this. The truth has a way of coming out regardless. Body cameras don't lie. Dispatch recordings don't change their story. Evidence doesn't protect anyone who betrays it. Mercer stood unsteadily. Yes, sir. After he left, Darius began clearing his desk. Personal items went into a cardboard box. The photo of his father in his factory uniform, a commendation plaque from his previous department, the brass pen set his officers had given him at his swearing-in ceremony. The intercom buzzed. Chief, Councilman Hale is here to see you. Gordon entered looking like a man attending a funeral he had helped arrange. His expensive suit was perfectly pressed, but his confidence had vanished. Darius, I'm sorry it came to this. Are you? Gordon closed the door and lowered his voice. Look, this has gotten out of hand. That video changes everything. Public perception, political pressure, it's too much to overcome. Public perception of what? A police chief explaining legal consequences to someone who filed a false report? That's not how it looks on camera. Darius continued packing. How it looks to who? Your donor? Darius, please, resign quietly. Take a settlement package. Everyone moves on with dignity intact. Whose dignity? Gordon's frustration broke through. Yours, mine, the department's. This hearing will drag everyone through the mud. Your career will be destroyed either way, but resignation lets you control the narrative. Darius picked up his nameplate, Chief Darius Holloway, and wrapped it carefully in tissue paper. Gordon, let me explain something about evidence. The 911 recording proves Lenora claimed to witness forced entry. The registration proves I owned the car. The garage footage proves no forced entry occurred. The body cameras prove she demanded my arrest before any investigation. Dispatch records prove her history of questionable calls. Ruiz's testimony proves she insisted I didn't belong in that neighborhood. But the video shows me warning someone about the legal consequences of making false statements to police. That's called doing my job. Gordon sat down heavily. You're gambling everything on a hearing. I'm trusting evidence over politics. Darius sealed the box. The question is whether this city wants a police chief who follows the law or one who follows donors. The phone rang again. Williams answered from the outer office. Chief, there's a press conference starting outside City Hall. Mrs. Vale is speaking. Darius walked to the window. In the distance he could see news vans lined up along the street. Somewhere beyond his view, Lenora was claiming victory. He picked up his box and walked toward the door. Everything that mattered was already preserved: recordings, footage, testimony, documentation. The evidence would speak for itself when the time came. At home that evening, Darius sat in his father's old armchair and watched the 6 o'clock news. Lenora stood at a podium surrounded by microphones, her voice carrying across the airwaves with righteous indignation. "No badge puts anyone above accountability," she declared to the assembled reporters. "Police chiefs cannot threaten citizens who report suspicious activity. Today's suspension sends a clear message that no one is above the law." The camera panned across the crowd of supporters behind her. Several neighborhood association members nodded approvingly. A handful of protesters held signs demanding police reform now. The reporter's voiceover continued. "Chief Holloway remains on administrative leave pending next week's independent hearing. Mrs. Vale says she will testify about what she calls an abuse of authority that began with a simple neighborhood safety call." Darius reached for the remote and turned off the television. Lenora thought she had won. Soon, she would learn the difference between winning and having all the evidence on your side. The morning light filtered through the kitchen windows of his father's house as Darius sat at the wooden table where he had eaten breakfast as a child. Now, 30 years later, he spread evidence folders across the same scarred surface, while 2 investigators from the State Attorney General's office reviewed every piece of documentation. "Let's start with the garage footage," said Detective Sarah Martinez, her laptop open beside stacks of printed reports. "This is your security camera?" "Installed by my father 5 years ago. Motion activated, records continuously when triggered." Darius pointed to the timestamp. "Here's me arriving home with the Rolls-Royce at 2:47 p.m. The video showed Darius pulling into the driveway and stepping out of the car. He walked to the trunk, unlocked it with his key fob, and began removing boxes. Everything looked perfectly normal. A man moving into his own home. "And here's Mrs. Vale approaching at 2:52, Martinez noted as Lenora appeared on screen, marching across the lawn with purpose. Detective James Crawford leaned forward. "Can you enhance the audio?" Darius clicked a few keys. Lenora's voice became crystal clear. "Excuse me? Where did you get that car?" "I told you it belongs to me," Darius replied calmly on the recording. "Belongs to you?" Lenora laughed harshly. "A man who just appeared in this neighborhood doesn't own a Rolls-Royce. I've never seen you before in my life." Crawford took notes. "She's establishing her position early, that you don't belong." The footage continued. Darius remained polite while Lenora grew more aggressive. Then came the moment that destroyed her entire story. "I'm calling the police right now," Lenora announced, pulling out her phone. "I saw you tampering with that car. The real owner might be in danger." Martinez paused the video. "She's claiming to have witnessed tampering, but your footage shows you unlocking it normally with your own keys." "Exactly," Darius said. "She invented that detail while standing right here." They watched Lenora dial 911. Her voice carried clearly across the driveway. "I need officers to respond immediately. There's a suspicious man who broke into an expensive car in my neighborhood. I watched him force his way inside. The homeowner might be hurt." Crawford shook his head. "She's not reporting what she thinks she saw. She's fabricating specific criminal activity." "Gets worse," Darius said, fast-forwarding to when the patrol cars arrived. "Here's Officers Mercer and Ruiz responding." Mercer's body camera captured everything from his perspective. Lenora rushed toward the officers before they could even assess the situation. "Thank goodness you're here. That man stole that Rolls-Royce. I saw him break into it." Mercer immediately deferred to her. "Ma'am, we'll handle this. Sir, I need you to step away from the vehicle." "Shouldn't we verify ownership first?" Ruiz asked on camera. "He doesn't own that car," Lenora snapped. "People like him don't drive cars like that. Search him. Arrest him." Martinez highlighted the timestamp. "She's demanding arrest before any investigation. And notice the language. People like him." Ruiz's camera showed him trying to de-escalate. "Ma'am, let us handle the procedure. Sir, do you have registration for this vehicle?" That was when Darius revealed his badge. "My God," Crawford muttered, watching Mercer's face change on camera. "Here's the key evidence," Darius said, switching to the complete audio file. Lenora edited this part from her cell phone video. The recording played, "Mrs. Vale, you need to understand what you just did. Knowingly providing false information in an emergency call can carry serious legal consequences. I'm advising you as a law enforcement officer that accuracy matters when you contact police." Martinez looked up sharply. She cut out the part about legal consequences and made it sound like a personal threat. Exactly. She transformed a factual warning into evidence of retaliation. Crawford opened another folder. "Tell us about the donor priority system." Darius pulled out internal documents. Informal but documented. Lenora's name was flagged as a priority community contact. Her calls got faster response times, less scrutiny, more deference. How long had this been happening? Years. Look at these previous incidents. Darius spread out report summaries. March. Called on a black delivery driver, claimed he was casing houses. False. April. Reported a Hispanic contractor as suspicious, demanded officers verify his work permits. Legal contractor. May. Called about teenagers playing basketball in the park, claimed they were intimidating residents. They were elementary school kids. Martinez studied the pattern. Every call targets minorities. Every description exaggerates normal behavior into criminal activity. And every time, officers responded like her word was gospel, because she donated to the police foundation. Crawford closed his laptop. This isn't just about your driveway. This is about a system that let wealth purchase preferential treatment. Which is exactly why the driveway confrontation happened, Darius said. Lenora expected officers to arrest me based on her word alone. She'd been conditioning them to do exactly that for years. Martinez gathered the evidence files. The registration confirms the Rolls-Royce belongs to you. The garage footage proves no break-in occurred. The 911 recording proves she fabricated witnessing forced entry. The body cameras prove she demanded arrest without evidence. Her editing proves she manipulated evidence to support false claims. And the donor records prove she purchased special treatment that enabled all of it, Crawford added. Darius closed the evidence file and stood up. Everything that mattered was documented, preserved, and irrefutable. Lenora's own accusations had created the paper trail that would expose her entire system of privilege and false reporting. At City Hall, she would finally face the consequences of treating police like her personal security service. The truth had been waiting patiently for this moment. The City Hall hearing room buzzed with tension as Darius pushed through the heavy wooden doors. Every seat was filled. Reporters lined the back wall, cameras ready. Oversight committee members shuffled through thick folders at the front table. Gordon Hale sat in the first row, his polished suit and practiced smile already working the room. Lenora Vale occupied the witness chair like a queen holding court. She wore a navy dress with pearl earrings, her silver hair perfectly styled. Her lawyer whispered last-minute instructions as she nodded gravely. Mercer sat near the middle, constantly checking his phone. His uniform looked freshly pressed, but sweat beaded on his forehead despite the air conditioning. Ruiz sat 2 rows behind him, calm and still. "Chief Holloway," Committee Chair Patricia Santos called out, "please take your designated seat." Darius walked down the center aisle. Every eye followed him. Whispered conversations died as he passed. He'd worn his dress uniform, crisp, formal, commanding. The badge on his chest caught the overhead lights. Santos gavelled the room to silence. "This emergency hearing will determine whether Chief Holloway abused his authority during a neighborhood incident 6 days ago. Mrs. Vale, you may begin your statement." Lenora leaned toward the microphone. Her voice trembled slightly. a careful performance of victimization. I was simply being a responsible neighbor. I saw someone tampering with an expensive car parked at a house that had been empty for months. The activity looked suspicious. I called 911 because I feared a crime was occurring and the homeowner might be in danger. She paused for effect, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. When officers arrived, this man became hostile. He refused to cooperate. Then he flashed his badge like a weapon and said I needed to understand what I'd done. He was intimidating me because I'd dared to question him. A law-abiding citizen shouldn't be threatened for calling police in good faith. Gordon nodded supportively from the front row. Several committee members scribbled notes. Reporters captured every word. Santos turned to the investigators. Please present your findings. Lead investigator Maria Crawford stood up. We'll start with the original 911 call that initiated this incident. She activated the audio system. Lenora's voice filled the room, crystal clear. I need officers to respond immediately. There's a suspicious man who broke into an expensive car in my neighborhood. I watched him force his way inside. The homeowner might be hurt. The room went dead silent. Several committee members looked up sharply from their notes. Crawford let the silence hang. The caller explicitly states she witnessed forced entry into the vehicle. This wasn't a general suspicious activity report. Mrs. Vale claimed to personally observe criminal conduct. Lenora's face tightened, but she maintained her composure. Now we'll examine what actually occurred, Crawford continued, activating the wall monitor. Darius's garage camera footage began playing. The timestamp showed the exact moment Lenora claimed to witness forced entry. Instead, the video revealed Darius walking calmly to the Rolls-Royce, pulling keys from his pocket, and unlocking the driver's door normally. No forcing, no braking, no criminal activity whatsoever. Gasps echoed through the room. A reporter in the back whispered urgently into his phone. Crawford switched to Ruiz's body camera footage. This is Officer Ruiz's recording from when patrol units arrived. The video captured Lenora rushing toward the police cars before the officers could assess anything. Thank goodness you're here. That man stole that Rolls-Royce. I saw him break into it. Then came her most damaging words. People like him don't drive cars like that. Search him. Arrest him. Committee members exchanged glances. The racism was undeniable now. Ruiz's camera showed him trying to follow proper procedure, while Lenora demanded immediate arrest without investigation. The footage revealed her becoming increasingly aggressive when officers didn't immediately comply with her commands. Gordon shifted uncomfortably in his seat. His political instincts were screaming warnings. Crawford pulled out internal department records. We've also discovered that Mrs. Vale held special status within the department. Her name was flagged for priority response and enhanced deference. That's perfectly normal for major donors, Gordon interjected quickly. Actually, Councilman Hale, it violates departmental policy regarding equal treatment under the law. And these records show you personally advocated for maintaining that preferential status. Gordon's face went pale. The calculated politician suddenly looked trapped. Santos addressed Mercer directly. Officer Mercer, you were primary on this call. Do you maintain your original statement? Mercer stood slowly, his hands shaking slightly. The room waited. No, ma'am. I need to correct my earlier testimony. His voice carried across the silent chamber. Mrs. Vale's reputation as a donor influenced how quickly I accepted her accusations. I should have verified ownership before considering any detention. Her political connections affected my professional judgment. The admission hit like a thunderbolt. Mercer had just confirmed the entire system of corruption. Lenora shot to her feet, her careful composure finally cracking. He still threatened me. I don't care what those recordings show about the car. Darius Holloway used his badge to intimidate a frightened resident. Play my video. You'll hear him threatening me. Santos looked toward the investigators. Mrs. Vale is referencing cell phone footage she provided. Are you prepared to address that evidence? Crawford nodded grimly. We are, but first, the committee needs to hear the complete, unedited version of that confrontation. Crawford approached the main display screen. The committee will now view the complete, unedited footage from Chief Holloway's security system. This recording captured the entire confrontation Mrs. Vale referenced in her cell phone video. The room fell silent as the timestamp appeared, the exact moment of Lenora's edited clip. The full recording began playing. Darius stood calmly beside his Rolls-Royce, his badge visible but held naturally at his side. His voice carried clearly through the speakers. Mrs. Vale, I need you to understand something important. Making a 911 call is a serious responsibility. Knowingly providing false information to emergency dispatchers can have legal consequences. When you told them you witnessed me forcing entry into this vehicle, that wasn't accurate. The law requires truthful reporting during emergency calls. The camera captured Lenora's face twisting with rage as Darius continued in the same measured tone. You need to understand what you just did. Filing a false police report isn't protected by your donor status or neighborhood position. It's a criminal offense regardless of who makes the call. The committee members leaned forward. The context transformed everything. Darius hadn't threatened retaliation. He'd explained the law. Lenora's edited version had surgically removed his references to legal consequences and truthful reporting. Her fragment isolated, "You need to understand what you just did," to sound like a personal threat instead of a statement about criminal liability. Committee Chair Santos studied the timeline display. Mrs. Vale, your cell phone recording eliminated approximately 43 seconds of Chief Holloway's actual words. Why did you edit out his specific references to legal requirements? That's not... The video shows what he said to me. Lenora's voice cracked with desperation. It shows a deliberately altered fragment, Santos replied coldly. This committee has now witnessed intentional evidence manipulation. Investigator Crawford pulled out additional documents. Mrs. Vale's pattern extends beyond this incident. Department records reveal 14 calls in the past 18 months targeting black contractors, delivery personnel, and visitors in her neighborhood. Multiple officers noted discrepancies between her reported observations and actual evidence found on scene. Gordon Hale stood abruptly, his political instincts finally overriding his loyalty to Lenora. Madam Chair, I need to withdraw my previous statements supporting Mrs. Vale's version of events. The evidence clearly contradicts her claims, and I cannot continue defending conduct that appears to violate both departmental policy and criminal law. The betrayal hit Lenora like a physical blow. Her most powerful ally had just abandoned her publicly. Santos addressed the full committee. We'll now vote on Chief Holloway's conduct during this incident. All those finding evidence of intimidation or abuse of authority? Silence. All those finding Chief Holloway acted appropriately under extraordinary circumstances? Every hand rose. The intimidation allegation is dismissed with prejudice. Santos turned toward Mercer and Ruiz. Officer Mercer, your abandonment of neutral procedure in favor of donor preference violates fundamental policing standards. You're hereby suspended for 5 days without pay and will complete mandatory bias training before returning to patrol duties. Mercer nodded grimly, accepting his punishment. Officer Ruiz, your insistence on verification despite political pressure exemplifies proper police work. This committee commends your professionalism under difficult circumstances. Santos faced Lenora directly. Mrs. Vale, this committee finds your conduct reprehensible. Evidence manipulation, false reporting, and abuse of donor influence have damaged public trust in law enforcement. Your actions are being referred to the district attorney for potential prosecution. Before Lenora could respond, Santos continued reading from prepared statements. The Police Foundation Board met in emergency session this morning. Mrs. Vale has been removed from all positions effective immediately. Additionally, the Willowbrook Neighborhood Association has called for her removal as president, with voting scheduled for tomorrow evening. Lenora's face went ashen. Her entire power structure was crumbling in real time. Santos stood for the final announcement. Chief Holloway, your administrative suspension is lifted immediately. This committee unanimously restores you to full authority as police chief. The accountability reforms you proposed regarding donor influence are approved for immediate implementation. 2 security officers approached Lenora as she sat stunned in her chair. "Ma'am, you need to leave the building now," one officer said quietly. Lenora rose unsteadily, her empire of influence destroyed in less than an hour. As she walked toward the exit, every eye in the room watched the woman who had tried to destroy a police chief simply for existing in his own driveway. The heavy doors closed behind her with a final echoing thud. The morning sun cast long shadows across the driveway where everything had started. Darius stepped through his front door, wearing the crisp navy uniform of police chief for the first time at his own home. The gold badge caught the light at his belt, no longer hidden behind his back or questioned by anyone who saw it. The pearl-white Rolls-Royce waited exactly where Lenora had first demanded to know how he could afford it. Its polished surface reflected the house his father had left him, the neighborhood he belonged in, and the authority no one would ever question again. His phone buzzed with the confirmation he'd been expecting. Deputy Chief Williams had sent the implementation notice. New protocols active as of Oro 600 hours. All patrol supervisors briefed. No exceptions. Darius read through the reforms one final time. The changes were simple but revolutionary for a department that had operated on influence rather than equality. Dispatch priority reform. No civilian names would receive unofficial priority status. Emergency calls would be evaluated purely on reported circumstances, not caller identity. The priority community contact list that had elevated Lenora's complaints above ordinary citizens was permanently abolished. Suspicious person standards. Officers responding to suspicious activity calls must document specific observable behaviors rather than accepting vague accusations. Doesn't belong here or looks suspicious would no longer justify police contact without supporting evidence of actual criminal conduct. Political pressure. Documentation. Any attempt by elected officials, donors, or community leaders to influence police responses must be formally reported and reviewed. The informal phone calls that had shaped patrol decisions for years would now create permanent records. The reforms addressed exactly what had happened in his driveway. They ensured no other resident would face what Darius had experienced simply for existing while black in their own neighborhood. A second message arrived from Lieutenant Hayes in Internal Affairs. Ruiz officially assigned as Reform Implementation Coordinator. Mercer reports for bias training Monday. Full compliance expected within 30 days. Darius smiled slightly. Ruiz had earned the promotion through his refusal to abandon procedure under pressure. The officer who had insisted on checking vehicle registration despite Lenora's demands would now help reshape how the entire department handled similar situations. Mercer faced a different future. 5 days suspension, mandatory retraining, and a permanent notation in his file documenting how donor influence had corrupted his judgment. The discipline was fair, but not career-ending. Mercer could rebuild his reputation by proving he'd learned from his mistakes. Movement caught Darius's attention. Across the property line, Lenora stood at her living room window watching him. She wore a bathrobe instead of the expensive clothes that had projected authority during their first confrontation. Her face looked older, drawn with the exhaustion of someone whose carefully constructed world had collapsed overnight. The police foundation had stripped her of every position. The neighborhood association would vote on her removal tonight, though the outcome was already decided. Local news had covered her evidence manipulation extensively, destroying any remaining credibility she might have claimed. Most seriously, District Attorney Williams had announced that his office would pursue charges related to the false 911 report. Lenora faced potential fines, community service, and a permanent criminal record for the lies she'd told to remove Darius from his own driveway. Darius felt no satisfaction in her downfall. He had never wanted to destroy Lenora personally. He had simply refused to allow her wealth and connections to corrupt the justice she demanded from others. The real victory wasn't her punishment. It was the systematic change that would prevent future Lenoras from weaponizing police against citizens they deemed unworthy of their neighborhoods. He walked toward the Rolls-Royce without acknowledging her presence. The car doors unlocked with a soft chirp as he approached. The leather interior still smelled new, a reminder of how far he'd traveled from his father's factory job to his own chief's office. Darius paused before opening the driver's door, his badge visible at his belt where anyone could see it. This wasn't about flaunting authority or expensive cars. This was about ensuring that a black police chief could stand in his own driveway without having his right to exist questioned by someone who thought wealth granted her the power to decide who belonged where. He settled into the driver's seat and started the engine. The Rolls-Royce purred to life, ready to carry him toward police headquarters where real reform work awaited. In her window, Lenora remained motionless, watching the consequences of her choices drive away.